As do a number of other amendments from other members.
Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. This has been described by various speakers as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to deal with one of the biggest social problems that we confront in 21st century New Zealand. I'm not a wowser, I drink, but I'm equally conscious as a New Zealander of the cost of alcohol abuse and misuse to our whole society, the economic cost, the social cost and the individual human cost. And that is the reason why the last Labor government set up the Law Commission to do a full inquiry into alcohol abuse in this country. And it seemed a sensible thing to do, to take it out of the political arena, to give it to a group of experts who consulted widely across New Zealand society, over 3,000 submissions received by the Law Commission, and to take what they themselves described as an evidence-based approach. Because what other approach makes sense than to look at the evidence, to look at it objectively, openly, honestly and transparently, and then act on the evidence. And that's why I believe, Mr. Chairman, that this bill is a disappointment. There are some things that it does, and I applaud the careful steps that it takes in that regard, but most of the things that it does actually date back to the time when Leanne Dalzell was Minister and talked about the need for local alcohol policies and talked about giving the community, the local communities, the ability to control the supply of alcohol in those areas. I heard a very frustrated mayor on the radio the other day in Auckland saying we needed these policies 2 years ago. And we did need them 2 years ago, and we could have had them 2 years ago, but the government has sat on this bill and then acted very cautiously and rejected the main recommendations of the Law Commission. The main recommendations of the Law Commission included the raising of the age of consumption to 20. I voted for that because I believe that we have a huge problem with teenage binge drinking. The House, in its wisdom, decided not to do that. Well, if we're not going to do that, then the House has to consider what in some of the SOPs will have an impact on binge drinking. And I want to express my disappointment again that the Minister met with the liquor industry interests, the vested interests that make hundreds of millions of dollars out of this area. And yes, of course they produce jobs, but that should not prevent us from saying that we have an obligation in this House to pass legislation that will moderate the impact of abuse. And one of the areas that Simon Power, the previous Minister of Justice, was adamant that the government should do was to limit the content of RTDs, the ready-to-drinks, the Alka-Pops, to 5%, pretty much the same as beer. And I saw the comments that Simon Power made, and I agreed with those. These drinks that appeal particularly to our young people, the preferred drink of 63% of female school-age drinkers, and the biggest single impact in raising the level of alcohol consumption in this country. Spirits soared because of the introduction of RTDs. And RTDs were designed to taste so sweet that you couldn't taste the alcohol, to appeal to young people, to be marketed like soft drinks, to be drunk by soft drinks, and selling 500,000 containers of alcohol pops a day has resulted in an enormous increase in alcohol consumption. And it's easy to deal with, Minister, and that is to restrict the level of alcohol to 5% from companies that have moved the alcohol level of RTDs up quite significantly, many now selling at 8%, some as high as 10%. So what I want, Mr. Chairman, is for this House to look, even at this late stage, at an evidence-based approach, and for government members of parliament to have the right to vote according to the evidence and not to be whipped into line and agree to everything they've been told by the minister to do to protect the liquor industry. And I urge national members of parliament to vote according to the evidence and to their own views. Because I've done a bit of research and I've seen what national members of parliament have said, including the minister's own predecessor, about RTDs and the need to restrict the alcohol content. So I urge the government to allow the freedom, Mr Chairman, the freedom to its own members to vote according to what they believe is right. And the MPs that I've talked to, and I don't name them because it's in confidence, on the other side of the House, have expressed concern about that and have expressed concern that the liquor industry should be paramount over health and policing people on the front line. And I want to bring it back to what the cost of alcohol is and why we need to act. I took time out to go down to an accident and emergency department, in this case at Auckland Hospital, to spend the early hours of Sunday morning there to witness what the staff of those hospitals have to deal with daily. And I don't know, Minister, whether you've had that experience, but I would certainly recommend it to you. Ministers from the government and the Prime Minister were invited to do so. And I was appalled at the sheer number of people coming in, injured because of alcohol, ill to the point of endangering their house because of alcohol, and often abusive of the staff in the hospital. And you only have to spend time with the doctors that are working there through the small hours of the morning, absolutely frustrated that they're spending their time working on people who have abused alcohol rather than doing the work that they'd want to improve the overall health of the community. Imagine the bonus to New Zealand if we were able to cut down the abuse of alcohol and cut down the $5 billion in costs that the Alcohol Liquor Advisory Council says that abuse of alcohol is causing each year. $5 billion. Instead of slashing social services, instead of cutting back the sort of services that New Zealand want, if we could bring down alcohol abuse, we could do something about it. But, Mr Chairman, this bill is a wasted opportunity because it doesn't tackle basic things that the Law Commission said that it should tackle, for example, like price and advertising. Why do we allow it to be promoted? Why do we allow RTDs to be sold at higher and higher levels of alcohol consumption, alcohol levels in what they're producing, rather than dealing with it? Let's have the courage in this House to do what is right and not come under pressure from the industry. This House is obliged to act for the benefit of New Zealanders, not for the benefit of those people that make money out of promoting alcohol to younger and younger people all the time. We need to do something about that, Mr Chairman. Can I say that there's another SOP in the name of my colleague Ian Lees-Galloway on the level of alcohol that can be consumed before you are driving unlawfully. And I've got the Cabinet paper in my hand that tells us what the government thinks about this, or what the government was advised on this, and it said that lowering the adult limit is arguably the most cost-effective way we've got of improving road safety. That is the advice given to Cabinet. And I want to ask the Minister why they have ignored that advice and said we need more research. We've got all the research we need. At 0.05 grams, your driving starts to become impaired. At 0.08, you're 3 times more likely to have an accident. And I say the House should exercise its independent judgment, look at the evidence. If we're worried about the hundreds of people that are dying and being maimed on the road each year because of too much alcohol in their blood, then let's act in this House because we can make a difference. It would be remiss of the House to simply go down the path of caution and say, great, this bill doesn't liberalise alcohol. No, it doesn't, but nor does it address the critical problems that are causing billions of dollars to be spent in health and in policing in this country. I want to say to those that said it's a minor problem, let's not hurt the majority because it's a minor problem. There are 444,000 people who said that they felt drunk when they were driving under one of the recent surveys that were done. Nearly 500,000 New Zealanders. 1 in 3 violent offences, alcohol related. 1 in 3 domestic violence offences, alcohol related. The Minister is Minister of Justice. These things must be deeply troubling to her. She was Minister of Police. We have to do something more than say, let's not offend the liquor industry, let's not offend those that are making money out of promoting a good that is legally saleable but actually isn't an ordinary commodity. It's not a silly thing to say. It is absolutely true. And Mr Williamson ought to consider what the cost is. You know, 200, we heard it from Kevin Haig not so long ago, 275,000 New Zealanders set out when they go drinking on their last occasion to get drunk. If that's not a serious problem, Mr Williamson, what is? We have to act.
Dr. Jackie Blue.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm pleased to be speaking to part